Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. In this video, I'll tell you all about my visit to Hurghada, Egypt, why it was one of the craziest yet rewarding experiences of my travel. I'll talk about the cost, the culture shocks, and the amazing adventures. If you are new here, I have created this channel to help you learn about how to travel, adventure, and have fun on the road to financial independence. I have traveled the world, paid off a house in Spain, and I've made big moves toward financial independence. I believe that the road to financial freedom can and should be fun. I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on this journey, no matter where you are starting from. In 2019, I was on a world adventure with my best friend. We had traveled around parts of Europe while we worked remotely, and then had gone to Bali for a quick 2-week vacation. For my job, I need to be working Eastern Standard Time hours, so staying in Southeast Asia was not an option. Since our time in the Schengen area of Europe was limited, we needed to look at other places in this area of the world. Check out this video for information about how long you can stay in the Schengen area of Europe. So I was looking at places in Eastern Europe like Bosnia or Bulgaria. We had traveled to Montenegro and Croatia already. Then I started looking at some of the countries in Northern Africa. Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt were all places that I looked into, read about, and did searches on Airbnb. I like a good deal, so moving the price slider down super low and just looking at all kinds of different places is a lot of fun for me. I found a really cute 2-bedroom apartment in Hurghada, Egypt, and was able to book it for almost 7 weeks for only $384.43. That is $8.17 per night. So if you're splitting that between 2 people, that comes to $4.09 per night per person. If you're splitting that between 4 people, it's only $2.04 per night per person. I'm sorry, even just for one person, the price of this apartment is just crazy. This actually turned out to be our favorite apartment during our travels, but there were definitely some bumps along the way. I'll come back to the apartment a little bit later. We were flying into Cairo. I did a lot of reading online and had decided to hire a driver to take us from Cairo to Hurghada. That cost was about $150, which may seem pricey, but the drive is almost 5 hours and then the driver has to turn around and go back to Cairo. Not bad for what you're getting. I will put a link in the description for the company that we used to book through because I'm not remembering it offhand, but I do remember that on the list of available forms of transportation was also a helicopter rental that of course comes with the helicopter pilot, but you can take a helicopter as a ride from Cairo to Hurghada. I believe that was around $1,200 or $1,400. I'm not exactly sure, so not part of your budget travel, but a pretty cool option, a helicopter taxi. We were traveling from Bali, Indonesia, so we were traveling for at least 20 hours from what I can remember. Just as we were leaving Bali, we started to get sick, and we were definitely not feeling well by the time we got to Cairo. After flying for that long and not feeling well on top of it, a 5-hour drive to Hurghada was pretty brutal. Maybe staying one night at a hotel in Cairo would have been a better decision, but sometimes you just have to go with the plans you've made. The majority of the drive between Cairo and Hurghada was just sand. I think we saw one tree and at some point drove between some cliff-like stone, but in general, not a lot to see. Honestly, I think the drive was more boring than the drive through Kansas. I am a person of Christian faith, and so I grew up reading a lot of stories about the Israelites wandering in the desert, and this really brought those stories to life. Honestly, I can hardly imagine wandering around in that for even a day. The drive did offer some nice water views once we reached the eastern side of Egypt and began heading south to Hurghada along the Red Sea. As we were getting closer to our Airbnb, you would look around and it almost looked as if a bomb had gone off. There were a lot of unfinished buildings in the middle of sand and not really any kind of parking lots or driveways, just bumpy sand everywhere. In the middle of several unfinished buildings, we finally pulled up to our apartment. This is where things started to go wrong. The owner of the Airbnb was not in Egypt, and he had a property manager who was supposed to be meeting us. He had given me her number so that I could message her, which I had done hours before our arrival. I never had a response from her. There was a security guard for the building who was sitting outside, and we asked him about it, but he acted as if he had no idea what we were talking about. I tried reaching out to the owner and also tried calling the property manager, but we had no response. This is the first time in my long history of renting Airbnbs that this happened to me. We didn't know what to do, and I felt awful for our driver as he had a long drive back to Cairo and the sun was beginning to set. We decided to have him take us to the nearest hotel, which was not but a few blocks away. We get to this hotel, which is questionable, and ask how much a room would be for the night. The guy looked at us as if it might not even be possible, but then says that they can get a room for us, but it will be $150. I couldn't believe it. That was almost half the price of our 7-week stay. The whole reason we had even chosen Hurghada was because of the good Airbnb deal. This was a disaster, but what can you do? I wish I had tried to negotiate because in Egypt I probably could have. I'm an awful negotiator and I was just so tired, so I just paid the money. We got to the room and it was awful. Dusty, hot, and everything just felt disgusting. It wasn't the worst place I have ever stayed in my life, but at this point, Egypt was beginning to look like a mistake. As we sat in the hotel room that night, I began to look at flights to other parts of Eastern Europe. I just didn't know if we'd be able to make it in Egypt. At this point, the host had gotten in touch with us. He was obviously very upset with his property manager, as he should have been. As it turns out, the security guard had been told that we were coming and was supposed to give us the keys. But that's not something the property manager should have ever passed off to him. The next morning, we took an Uber over to the apartment and were finally able to get in just fine. The apartment was great. It had a comfy living room, good TV, a balcony, and it was very clean and modern. The beds maybe weren't the most comfortable, but they also weren't awful. The only problem we ended up having during our stay was with the Wi-Fi. It wasn't great. I do my remote work online, and we also watch quite a bit of Netflix, so we really need to have good Wi-Fi. We ended up having to purchase Wi-Fi cards to put in my mobile hotspot every week or so. It was not cheap, so this ended up being an added expense that I would have to tack on to what the apartment cost us. Wi-Fi was supposed to be included, so it was definitely a frustration. Our first 2 weeks in Hurghada were rough. There were times we thought about leaving, for sure. At the beginning, we both said there was no way we would ever come back to Hurghada again. We had a lot of trouble finding anything that was open, figuring out where to buy things, and other things that really played into the culture shock. Slowly but surely, we began to figure things out. We identified some local grocers nearby and found a 24-hour coffee shop that was just a stone's throw away from our apartment. We would go there late every night after we finished work, order a coffee or a mango juice, and we would play skip-bo at one of the outdoor tables until 2 or 3 in the morning. It wasn't anything glamorous, but we finally began to find a good pace to life there. Let me go back to mangoes for just 1 second. Egypt has an abundance of them, and they are the best I have had anywhere in the world. Anyway, most of the things we found were right under our noses. But let me tell you, Google Maps was not reliable. I can't tell you how many times I walked in the scorching sun to get to a restaurant or a store on the map just to find that it didn't exist or was closed. That part was awful. But week 4 and 5, we began to say that Hurghada might be a place we would visit again. At least once or twice a week, we would wake up early and take an Uber to El Guna, which is like a small resort city about 25 minutes north. You have to go through a security gate to even enter, but they had some really nice pool and beach areas that you could stay at for free as long as you were ordering a certain amount of food or drink. But it wasn't a high cost, maybe $5 or $7 US, which isn't bad if that takes care of your food, drinks, plus getting lounge chairs and umbrellas for free. If I was going to stay in Egypt for a long time again, I think El Gouna would be a nice place to stay for a more luxe experience. Will it be the most cultural experience? I'm not sure. Then we also found that a bit of an Uber drive into the center of Hurghada opened up a lot more options for us as far as bigger grocery stores and beachfront places where we could sit at a restaurant and work for a while. Good Wi-Fi wasn't always easy to come by, but we used our hotspot if good Wi-Fi wasn't available. One of our favorite places to go toward the end of our stay was a cute little restaurant. Then right next to it was a little bowling alley of all things. We tried bowling there once, and that was fun. It was funny though, because you could tell that bowling etiquette was not really a thing. I would be getting ready to bowl in my lane and someone would just walk right in front of me. But this would be normal there, so it's not like it was offensive or anything. You could just tell that it was probably a bit new there. The best part was the ping pong table they had inside the bowling alley. I believe we rented the table with 2 paddles for maybe $1 or 2 for the hour. Now, you have to remember that it is hot in Egypt and air conditioning is not something to count on. So we were always a bit sweaty after playing, but it didn't matter. Those ping pong games were a lot of fun. Outside of these normal day-to-day experiences, we also went on a few adventures. We went on an ATV drive across the Sahara Desert and then enjoyed dinner in a village before driving back across the desert on ATVs under the stars. The ATV tour we booked was private, so my friend and I each had our own ATV and one guide on his own ATV. The tour was 5 hours long in total, and it included dinner and probably a total of 2 hours of driving on the ATVs. The total was only €36 per person, which is only about $40 US. Not bad. I think driving that ATV back across the desert under the stars was one of my favorite experiences in my life. I'm not big on tours, but this one was worth it for sure. Another experience we did in Hurghada was a dolphin habitat snorkeling tour. It was $30 per person, and we went out on a boat for a good part of the day. Honestly, this is the kind of tour that is the reason I don't really like tours. There were so many boats out on the water doing this type of tour, and they were literally trying to chase the dolphins around and have people hurry to jump in to try to swim with them. In Egypt, the idea that it's important to treat animals well seems to go unnoticed. After a failed attempt at swimming with dolphins, we did go over to a reef area and just swim around for a long time. We were given a snorkel, mask, and fins, and I've got to say that the snorkeling in Egypt was incredible. The reef was beautiful, and so were the fish. I'm not sure what other ways snorkeling is available, but I wasn't a fan of how these tours treated the dolphins, so not something I'd recommend. We also took a weekend road trip to Cairo, but I'll save that for another video. By the time we were getting ready to leave Hurghada, we both felt like it was a place we would enjoy visiting again. I can't say that it's at the top of my list, but Egypt did have some special experiences and friendly people that I will never forget. Hey, I hope you'll subscribe and join me every Sunday where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.